After my cousin got arrested, my aunt lied to HR saying I quit to focus on myself, just to cover her ass, got me fired while I was still at my desk. Family takes hits, she said, so I filed something that turned her promotion into a public apology. I was literally sitting at my desk when I found out I'd been let go. Not from my boss, not from HR, from an email that went out to the entire department, wishing my name all the best as she takes time to focus on herself. Except I wasn't focusing on myself. I was focusing on the data report due at 3 p.m. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I read it twice. My coworker Jenna wheeled her chair over, whispering, "Wait, did you quit?" I just stared at her. My hands were shaking. No, what the hell is this? Within 5 minutes, I was locked out of the system. Badge deactivated. HR said they'd been informed I'd resigned. By my aunt? My manager. Yeah, my Aunt Denise. The one who used to brag at Thanksgiving about how she pulled me out of a bad job and gave me a start in the corporate world. The same aunt who told me, family sticks together. You help me, I help you. Only now, apparently, I'd quit. I remember standing in that sterile HR office, trying to stay calm while they said things like, "We're sorry to hear you're going through something personal." I wasn't. The only personal crisis happening was Denise's. Her son, my cousin Ryan, had just been arrested 2 days before for stealing company equipment from the same branch where she worked. And now I was realizing she'd thrown me under the bus to save face. HR said the note had come from management. They couldn't reverse it without evidence. When I went to confront Denise, she didn't even flinch. She looked me right in the eye and said, "Family takes hits sometimes, honey. This is one of those times." I asked her, "You lied to HR about me quitting. You actually did that." She just shrugged. "You'll land on your feet. I couldn't afford more scrutiny right now. You understand?" That line, "you understand," felt like acid. I walked out before I said something that make things worse. That night, I sat in my car outside my apartment, phone lighting up with messages from coworkers. Everyone thought I'd quit on purpose. "You okay? Good for you, focusing on yourself." Denise had already rewritten the story. But she didn't know something about me. I had everything. The emails, the texts, the timestamps. And one specific thread between her and HR that would make her carefully curated little empire start to crack. Because she wasn't just lying about me quitting. She was also lying about why her son's theft investigation had nothing to do with her. And I knew exactly where to start. When I first joined the company, I thought I'd won the family lottery. Aunt Denise was a department head at a logistics firm in Dallas. Big office, catered lunches, the kind of place where people wore business casual and pretended to like it. I was 25, fresh out of a burnout job, and she offered me a position that seemed too good to be true. She said, "Come work for me, we'll be the dream team." I honestly believed her. Denise had always been the cool aunt. She took me on shopping trips, slipped me 20s as a kid, and acted like she genuinely cared. My mom used to say, "Just remember, Denise always does what's best for Denise." I brushed it off. At first, everything was great. She hyped me up in meetings, told people I was her secret weapon, and even took me to a company retreat where she introduced me to the VP as her rising star. I started to see her as a mentor. She had that kind of confidence that filled a room, the kind that made you want to impress her. But slowly, things started to shift. Whenever something went wrong, a late shipment, a misfiled invoice, a missing piece of data, it somehow became my fault. Denise always spun it like she was protecting me. "Don't worry, I'll handle it," she'd say, then take credit for fixing it. It wasn't until later that I realized she was creating the fires herself, then saving the day. Her son, Ryan, worked at the warehouse side of operations. He was always kind of a screw-up, late, careless, cocky because his mom was upper management. Denise covered for him constantly. The joke in the office was, Ryan could burn the place down, and his mom would call it a learning opportunity. I didn't know how true that joke would become. About a month before everything fell apart, we had a weird situation. Some high-end equipment went missing, stuff worth thousands. Rumors were flying, and Ryan suddenly started acting nervous. Denise told everyone the real thief was already caught, and Ryan had been helping with the investigation. But I saw the email from security that had been forwarded by mistake to my inbox. It said Ryan M., subject of active internal investigation. I should have deleted it, but I didn't. I tried to warn her quietly, told her, "Denise, I think there's something you should know." She gave me this tight smile and said, "Sweetheart, never speak about family business to outsiders." Ever, that was the moment I realized she wasn't trying to protect her son from the truth, she was trying to bury it. And when Ryan got arrested a week later, she panicked. Meetings, calls, corporate inquiries, it all blew up at once. I stayed quiet, did my job, kept my head down. But Denise started treating me differently. She stopped copying me on emails. She avoided eye contact. Then, 2 days after his arrest, she called me into her office and asked, "Would you be willing to take some personal time?" I told her no. She just nodded, looking at me like I was already gone. And I guess I was. Because the next morning, she told HR I'd chosen to step away to deal with family issues. That's how I got fired while still sitting at my desk. But what Denise didn't realize was that she'd left a paper trail, and I wasn't just some intern who'd walk away quietly. After that day, I felt hollow. Angry, sure, but mostly numb. Getting fired is one thing, being erased is something else. Denise didn't just fire me, she rewrote my story to make herself look clean. I didn't sleep that first week. I kept replaying her voice in my head. Family takes hits sometimes. Like I was some expendable PR move. So I started digging. I still had access to my company email archives on my personal laptop, the ones that had been synced before they locked my account. I went through everything, searching for messages between Denise and HR. What I found made my blood go cold. 2 days before my resignation went out, she'd sent HR an email with the subject line, "Transition plan for my name." She wrote, "She's requested some time off to regroup and focus on herself due to family stress. I'll manage her projects in the meantime." That was a lie. I never said that, not even close. Then I found another email, sent after Ryan's arrest. HR asked if his case had any overlap with her department, and she responded, "None whatsoever. The investigation has no connection to my team or family." Also a lie. She'd built her nothing to do with me defense on my back. I was her scapegoat. I talked to Jenna, my old coworker who still worked there. She was furious when she found out I hadn't quit. "We all thought you were having a breakdown or something," she told me. "Denise said you needed space and didn't want to be contacted. So she'd isolated me completely. That's when something clicked. Denise wasn't just lying, she was tampering. Corporate PR had been sniffing around the warehouse theft, and she'd thrown up smoke screens everywhere. Getting me out of the picture made her story cleaner. I started saving everything. Screenshots, backups, timestamps. I even backed up the forwarded email about Ryan's investigation. I built a little digital folder I titled Insurance. Then, I reached out to someone in corporate compliance, anonymously at first. I told them there were inconsistencies in a department head's statements related to an ongoing theft case. I attached a few redacted emails. Within a day, they replied, "Can we schedule a call?" I remember sitting in my car, parked behind a grocery store, talking to this calm-sounding investigator from corporate HQ. He asked careful questions. I gave careful answers. I didn't use Denise's name at first, but he already knew. Apparently, HR had already flagged a few irregularities in her communications. My info filled the gaps. By the end of the week, a quiet internal review was opened. Denise didn't know it yet, but she started to suspect something was off. Jenna texted me, "She's been freaking out lately, snapping at people, keeps saying someone's trying to undermine her." That made me smile, even if just for a second. I thought that would be the end of it, me giving them the truth and walking away. But Denise wasn't done. When corporate started asking questions about her son's case and my resignation, she didn't come clean. She doubled down, and that's when the first twist hit. Because suddenly, corporate started calling me again. Not to apologize, to ask why my story didn't match the HR report I'd supposedly written myself. A report I'd never even seen. When corporate called me back, I thought it was to confirm what I'd already told them. Instead, the woman on the phone said, "We just need you to verify that this statement came from you." "Statement?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "Your resignation memo, the one you sent to HR." My stomach dropped. "What resignation memo?" There was a long pause, then she read it aloud. "I've decided to take a break from work to handle family matters and focus on my personal well-being. I want to thank Denise for being so understanding through this process. She's been incredibly supportive, and I don't want my situation to reflect poorly on her team. I went silent. It sounded professional, polished even, but it wasn't my voice. Not one word of it. "Can you send me a copy?" I finally said. When it arrived, my name was right there at the bottom, typed signature and all. It looked real, like I'd written it myself. But the formatting was wrong. The timestamp was 2 hours after I'd clocked in that morning. I was literally in the office at the time this email was supposedly sent. I knew instantly Denise had forged it. I felt sick. Not just because she lied again, but because she'd taken my words, my identity, and used it as a shield for herself. I asked corporate, "Can you tell me where it came from? What email address?" They said it was forwarded to HR by Denise directly, claiming I'd asked her to pass it along while I was out of the office. They'd believed her. Why wouldn't they? She was a department head. I was a niece. A junior analyst. That's when it hit me. Denise hadn't just lied to get me fired. She'd forged evidence in a federal-level corporate investigation. If this went further, she could lose everything. And she knew it. A few days later, I got a call from her. Calm voice, same fake sweetness she used at family dinners. "Sweetheart," she said, "I heard compliance reached out to you. I really need you to stop talking to them. This is bigger than you understand." I let her talk. She rambled about protecting the family name, about Ryan being fragile, about how her career supports everyone. Then she slipped. She said, "If this gets out, they'll assume I manipulated company records. You don't want that kind of thing tied to our family, do you?" She said it like a warning. I recorded the call. I didn't plan on using it yet, but it became my ace in the hole. That night, I printed everything. Every forged email, every message, every file she'd touched. I built a timeline of her lies. And while I was doing that, Jenna texted me again. "FYI, Denise just told HR you're unstable and harassing her." That's when I realized this wasn't over. She was trying to destroy my credibility before I could expose her. So I made a decision. If she wanted to play the professional reputation game, I'd hit her where it hurt most: her spotless record and her path to executive promotion. Because next week, she was scheduled for her final review before being promoted to regional director. And guess who was reviewing her? The same corporate compliance team now holding my evidence. After I printed everything, I realized revenge wasn't some cinematic act of dramatic exposure. It was paperwork, patience, and absolute refusal to be gaslit into silence. I had to make this corporate, boring, by the books, unignorable. If Denise wanted to weaponize family and HR's goodwill, I'd weaponize policies and protocol. Step 1 was to make a formal complaint. Not a furious email or passive-aggressive Slack posts. A complaint that used the company's own language. Forgery, falsification of records, obstruction of an internal investigation, and retaliation. I wrote it like a lawyer would write an indictment. Clear facts, dates, attachments, witnesses. I attached the forged resignation with metadata screenshots, the email thread showing Denise forwarding the memo, the security email that had named Ryan in the investigation, and the recording of her admitting she'd be assumed to have manipulated company records if it got out. I labeled every file. I timestamped everything. I called the folder Formal Evidence. Then I did something that made my stomach flip. I sent it to 3 places at once: compliance, corporate HR, and the regional ethics officer, with a request for confidentiality and an explicit ask. Pause any personnel actions related to Denise, including promotions, until an independent review is completed. I didn't phrase it as a plea. I phrased it as a policy-driven request. In a company that cared about its legal exposure, that kind of language would be hard to ignore. I also lined up witnesses. Jenna agreed to write a sworn statement about the office narrative. How Denise told people I was taking time off, the way Denise had isolated me, and how she'd forwarded HR messages. A junior security analyst, someone who had accidentally CC'd me on the Ryan investigation memo, confirmed that the memo existed and that Ryan had been under active review. I had a small, unlikely coalition: an insider security file, an HR chain with a suspicious forwarding, a recorded admission, and coworkers who remembered the little lies that made the big lie possible. The brutal part was waiting. I couldn't leak anything publicly, not yet. Public leaks would ruin any chance compliance would take me seriously, and I needed compliance to do exactly what I asked. block the promotion, and force Denise to answer in front of the people who mattered. If they investigated and found forgery, the promotion wouldn't just be delayed. It could be pulled, and the promotion meeting could become a forum for accountability. I started imagining Denise standing before the promotion panel, forced to read the findings aloud. I let that image slow burn for a bit. It soothed me. There was a tactical move I almost didn't make. I requested a meeting with the regional VP, the exact person slated to sign off on Denise's promotion. I sent a short, unemotional note. I have filed a formal complaint, and I request that you withhold action on Denise's promotion pending the investigation. That pinged the VP's calendar, and more importantly, put the promotion squarely within compliance's review window. A week later, compliance acknowledged receipt. Their message was the most neutral sentence I'd ever wanted to hear. We are opening an independent review. All personnel actions related to the subject will be paused until completion. It felt like the first domino had been shifted. But I knew Denise. She didn't play by rules, she played around them. If the review was internal and quiet, she'd try to control the narrative again, to rewrite the record in whispers. So I planned for a bigger shock. I prepared an extra email, not one to leak anything, but one that would be impossible to ignore if compliance tried to sweep it under the rug. A short, factual summary of my complaint, addressed to the board's ethics committee and copied to corporate communications, with a note that I was prepared to testify. No accusations, just facts and attachments. If compliance stalled, that email would make the situation external, not a leak, but an escalation using the company's own governance structure. It was a dangerous move. It could blow everything up, including me. But Denise had already chosen the direction of the fight. I hit send on the board email at midnight, because cowardice is a quiet thing and revenge is loud. Then I went to bed for the first time in days without my hands shaking. But I didn't sleep long, because the next morning Jenna texted, "Denise knows someone filed. She's begging the VP for a meeting, says it's a family crisis." And that's where the plan hit the first real snag and where the second twist came in. By the time the internal review officially opened, Denise was in panic mode. She stopped posting her usual inspirational quotes on the company chat. She was calling in sick more often, but still somehow controlling everything through her assistant. HR locked down communication, and word spread quietly that her promotion review was delayed pending further verification. She knew that meant something bad. But instead of laying low, Denise went on the offensive. One Monday morning, I woke up to a flood of texts from Jenna. Denise called an emergency staff meeting. "She's saying you're blackmailing her. She said you're threatening to destroy her career out of jealousy." I felt my throat close. She'd actually gone there. And worse, she'd dragged my mom into it. Apparently, Denise told the office that family tension had been spilling into the workplace. She painted me as this unstable niece with personal grudges over Ryan's arrest, someone mentally unwell and seeking revenge. She was rewriting reality again, but this time she was broadcasting it. For a second, I panicked. Maybe she'd get away with it again. Maybe corporate would see two women fighting and chalk it up to family drama. That's exactly how Denise operated. She turned professional sabotage into emotional confusion. But then something happened that she didn't anticipate. The regional VP, the one who had been supposed to sign off on her promotion, called me directly. He sounded tired, cautious. "I wanted to hear your side," he said. "Denise is claiming this complaint stems from personal animosity. She's asking for leniency because she says you two are related." So I sent him everything. The fake resignation letter, the forged timestamp, the recording where she admitted she'd be accused of manipulating records. And then, the thing that changed everything, I sent a screenshot of a recent message I'd gotten from her personal email. It said, "If you keep pushing this, you'll regret it. Remember who helped you get this job. Family loyalty should mean something." I could practically hear the silence on the other end of the call. That's when the VP said quietly, "Thank you. We'll handle it from here." 2 days later, I got a message from Jenna. She's in a closed-door meeting with legal. Looks bad. But the second twist wasn't that she got caught. It was what she did next. Denise didn't just deny the allegations. She doubled down and accused me of fabricating the emails and doctoring her messages. She told the company's legal team that I had hacked her account out of spite. That was her move. She tried to flip it. She thought she could bury me under the weight of the same system she'd been abusing. But what she didn't know was that compliance had already pulled the metadata logs from the company's servers. Every email, every login, every file edit, all traced back to her account. And it turned out, when she forged my resignation, she'd done it from her office computer, using the same admin credentials she'd been given for department oversight. The IT logs didn't just show when she sent it, they showed her opening my email archive the same morning the fake memo was sent. That single data point destroyed her entire story. I didn't hear from her again for a few days after that. Not a word. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email from her personal Gmail. Just one line, "You've really done it now. You don't understand what's coming." That was the moment I realized this was never about family, or even her son. This was about something darker. Because the review report wasn't even the endgame. Denise had been covering up more than just Ryan's theft. The real reason she'd risked everything, including framing me, was something I'd never imagined. And when I finally saw the report that corporate filed, I understood exactly how far she'd gone. When the official investigation summary came out, it wasn't emailed to everyone. It wasn't even shared publicly inside the company. But one of the compliance officers, who'd spoken to me through the process, called me off the record and said, "You deserve to know what we found." At first, I thought she meant more about Ryan's theft case. Maybe Denise had helped him cover it up. Maybe she'd falsified a few reports to protect him. That would have made sense. It would have been desperate, wrong, but almost human. But no, it was worse. Turns out, Denise had been using her position to sign off on fake reimbursement invoices, expenses supposedly tied to Ryan's department, training programs, and equipment replacements. Those invoices were being processed through the same warehouse Ryan worked at. The money wasn't huge, not embezzlement level, but enough to show a pattern. Fraudulent authorizations that looked like small clerical errors until someone added them up. And here's the kicker. The moment Ryan got arrested, those fake invoices suddenly pointed straight to her. Because he'd been using the same vendor accounts she approved. When corporate started investigating him, they were hours away from realizing she'd been quietly approving and covering for his transactions. So she panicked. She needed to redirect scrutiny immediately away from her email logins, away from her department. And that's where I came in. She didn't choose me randomly. She chose me because she thought family wouldn't fight back. She assumed I'd stay quiet out of guilt or shame or fear. She thought she could sacrifice me like a chess piece, one move to protect her own name and her son. The compliance officer told me the phrase Denise used during her first interview. It was a family issue, and I handled it internally. Handled it internally, as in, fired her niece and forged a resignation letter to make her own lies line up with HR's records. That sentence haunted me. They showed her the metadata evidence. She didn't deny it. Instead, she said she'd panicked and tried to minimize reputational damage. Then she started crying, saying she didn't mean to hurt me. But the tone of the final report wasn't sympathetic. The last line said, "Subject knowingly falsified official records to conceal conflicts of interest and obstruct internal investigation." I just sat there, listening to the compliance officer read that line. I didn't even feel vindicated at first, just cold. All the times Denise had lectured me about professional integrity, all the little digs about earning my place, every Thanksgiving where she bragged about being the one in the family who made it. All of it built on lies, all of it built on other people cleaning up after her. And when it came down to it, she didn't throw me under the bus because of some corporate drama. She did it because she was guilty. Her career, her reputation, her son, everything she'd built was built on paper-thin lies. And when it started cracking, she decided I was expendable. That's the part that still stings the most. Not that she lied, but that she looked me in the face and said, "Family takes hits," like I was supposed to understand. I finally did understand. She wasn't saying family takes hits. She was saying you take the hit, so I don't have to. The day of Denise's promotion hearing was supposed to be her big moment. The meeting had been rescheduled twice because of the ongoing investigation. But once corporate wrapped it up, they decided to move forward with a review session instead of a promotion. It wasn't technically disciplinary, it was a panel discussion about department integrity. Everyone knew what that meant. Jenna texted me that morning. They made it open to all department heads. She's sweating bullets. I didn't plan to attend, but corporate had CC'd me on the internal announcement, accidentally, I think, and seeing her name there, with the word integrity right next to it, made something in me click. I wasn't going to scream or make a scene. I was just going to make sure the truth was impossible to ignore. Before the meeting started, I forwarded one final email to the VP, HR, and corporate comms. A single line with an attachment. The file was titled Denise Legal Findings PDF. Inside was the final report summary, the one that used those exact words. Subject knowingly falsified official records to conceal conflicts of interest and obstruct internal investigation. I didn't add commentary. I didn't need to. 20 minutes later, Jenna texted me again. They just stopped the meeting. Compliance came in mid-presentation. People are whispering. Then, a second text. She's reading something out loud. Like apologizing. I opened the live company chat feed. They streamed department meetings internally for transparency. The screen showed Denise at the podium, pale and stiff, voice trembling as she read a prepared statement. I take full accountability for decisions that did not reflect the company's values. I regret the impact my actions had on others, especially those who placed their trust in me. And then she said my name, in front of everyone. To my niece, who I deeply hurt, I'm sorry. It wasn't personal. It wasn't even real. I could hear the compliance officer standing beside her, monitoring every word. It was a forced apology, the kind you give to save the company, not to save your soul. Still, watching her face while she said it felt like oxygen. The promotion was officially revoked. She was reassigned pending review, which was corporate speak for fired quietly after the holidays. HR sent me a follow-up acknowledging that my resignation had been reclassified as a wrongful termination based on falsified information. They offered to reinstate me or provide a written apology and compensation. I didn't want the job back. I took the apology and a severance payout. A week later, I got a short email from her personal account again, no apology this time, just, "You destroyed me, hope you're proud." I didn't reply. Instead, I sent one final message to HR. I told them I was satisfied with the resolution and had no further concerns. Then I attached the recording of her threatening me, just to make sure it stayed in her file forever. A month later, someone from compliance called to tell me she'd officially resigned for personal reasons. Translation: she'd been pushed out. I heard she's working at a smaller firm now, far away from Dallas. No title, no team, no family around to cushion the fall. Sometimes I still think about that day in her office, the way she said, "Family takes hits," like it was a moral code. She was right, in a way. Family does take hits. She just didn't realize that this time, the hit was coming for her.